Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, June 17th. Holland Squalin, Glis Tuktumut, Glis Squamish Okmeo. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish's website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting, which would be Sarah Morris today. Could I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Councillor French moves, Councillor Anderson seconds. All in favor? Motion carries. I just wanted to point out to anyone observing Councillor Pettingill is joining remotely today. Thank you for that, Councillor. And now we'll get underway with the District of Squamish Annual General Meeting. Items, Council, just for orientation, item 3.1 and 3.2 are, we're going to get have a discussion of both of those sort of together, and then we'll do the motion, consider the motions after. I'll turn over to Ms. Glenday to get us started.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good morning, and good morning to the community that's watching and staff in the room. I'm pleased to present highlights of the District's 2024 annual report as part of the District's annual general meeting. Here we go. The report demonstrates the district's progress in relation to the objectives established for 2024, guided by council through the district's strategic plan. It includes what we plan to accomplish in the next 2 years, the audited financial statements for 2024, any declarations of disqualifications made under Section 111 of the Community Charter, of which there were none, information and amounts of each permissive tax exemption provided, as well as lists of licenses, leases, grants, and development cost charges. The 4 strategic outcomes listed here have been identified as the highest priorities to achieve over the course of Council's term. Resilient People and Relationships prioritizes work to build inclusion and belonging with and within the community. Connected and Livable Community aims to improve community happiness and well-being and build connections and opportunities for everyone to thrive. Reliable Service Delivery outlines goals to deliver effective municipal services for residents and businesses today and into the future. Preparing for the Future focuses on work to enable a prosperous future for a resilient community. I will go through each of the 4 strategic areas and talk about some highlighted tactics that were achieved in 2024. So under Resilient People and Relationships, with Squamish Okmeo, we continued work on the Eagle Viewing Area CHM Reserve Dike Feasibility Plan project and agreed to select and evaluate a new dike alignment option. Work on the Joint Memorandum of Understanding with Squamish Okmeo continues for both councils to approve and sign. Accessibility audits of district facilities and public spaces were developed to inform district project planning and guidelines. The district applied an inclusion, diversity, equity, and access lens to the Community Climate Action Plan update to support development of inclusive policies. The district executed a partnership agreement and sublease with Sea to Sky Community Services Society to operate the nearly completed Munmun Ta Smanit childcare facility in Valleycliff. And the last tactic we'll highlight here is that the district supported the Youth Climate Corps to support a variety of tasks in Squamish. This included support for Squamish Climate Action Network programming and a partnership with energy assessors to perform air sealing work free of charge on 24 homes in Squamish and Whistler as part of a pilot project. Under Connected and Livable Community, the newly developed Spockwas Feather Oceanfront Park and public beaches were opened, and ownership was transferred to the district from the developer. The Brennan Park Recreation Center renovation began to achieve important energy savings, improve accessibility, improve lobby and customer service areas, renovate the ice rink change rooms, and more. The district completed 25 of 32 actions in the Squamish Housing Action Plan, including introduction of fourplex zoning across the community, creation of a density bonus for the RM2 and RM3 zones. Competitions were held for accessory dwelling units and multiplexes, resulting in shovel-ready designs for property owners to purchase. In the Squamish Adventure Centre, the proposed Squamish Story exhibit was approved by Squamish Okmeo elders. Phase 2 of the project, the exterior of the building, has been awarded and 50% designs are under review. A boat launch feasibility review for Darrell Bay was initiated, speed limits were reviewed for downtown, and active transportation routes were improved, including an extension of the trail along Tantalus Road. And under reliable service delivery, the asset management reserve funding strategy was incorporated into the financial plan. Increased public online services to include building, development, and business license applications and payment options were completed. The district introduced accessibility improvements to our website, squamish.ca, to better support site visitors with visual and motor impairments. The district completed a water master plan that includes a long-term water supply strategy, water conservation plan, asbestos cement water main renewal plan, and water and sewer utilities rate study. The district remediated the storm ditch at Industrial Way and Highway 99. And in the picture, you can see that the district completed 2 new water storage reservoirs near Capilano University. And looking ahead and preparing for the future, the district completed and began operation of Fire Hall number 2 as a net zero all-electric post-disaster building that includes renewable energy generation on site. The district signed a memorandum of understanding with Squamish Capilano University to guide collaborations to achieve shared goals and benefit the local campus and the community. We executed a partnership agreement with nonprofit Squamish Climate Action Network Society, Squamish CAN, to assist in the development of a Squamish farm and food hub. The district completed the Chikai Fan debris flow mitigation review, and construction on the debris flow barrier began. The district invited expressions of interest for the purchase or lease of up to 17 acres of commercial, industrial, or mixed-use land in the Squamish Business Park to maximize potential. This slide is intentionally crowded. It is a bit of an eye chart and serves to demonstrate the stated goals of what we will work towards achieving in the remainder of 2025 and 26. All of these are included in the annual report, which is available online. A few key items include completion of the Squamish Okmeo MOU, continued Brennan Park renovations, completion of the Valley Cliff Childcare Facility, commissioning of the wastewater treatment center, and completion of the new public works facility that is under construction. There were many memorable moments in 2024, some uplifting and some challenging. These ranged from managing floodwaters in the North Yards to opening new playgrounds and the Fire Hall number 2, hosting a delegation from Shimizu Town, our sister city in Japan, engagement activities with the Youth Council and our community at the annual budget event were plentiful, and we increased community resilience with 2 new water reservoirs. The district's capital plan in 2024 was comprehensive. This infographic on the slide highlights a number of the infrastructure upgrades that took place in 2024. These upgrades are guided by an asset management plan and master plans that look to the future for infrastructure maintenance, upgrades, and replacement to keep pace with the community's growth. Part of our annual performance reporting is captured in a series of community indicators that helps track progress towards goals identified in the Squamish 2040 official community plan. The indicators are updated annually where possible and can be found via a link on the squamish.ca homepage or directly at indicators.squamish.ca. The annual report includes the district's independently audited financial statements and includes lists of community enhancement grants, permissive tax exemptions, development cost charge expenditures, and licenses and leases entered into by the district. And as always, receiving and incorporating public input is a year-round exercise as the district strives for transparency and works to offer genuine ways for the community to engage. There are many ways the public can reach the district to provide feedback or input into decision-making, whether online or in person. We invite the community to learn about all the opportunities by following our social media channels, subscribing to e-news, or engaging with us on letstalksquamish.ca. We look forward to developing new and improved community connections through the coming months and years. That is the end of my presentation about our annual report. I would like to now invite Ms. Rianne Souza, our acting CFO, to come and present briefly on the Statement of Financial Information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Not at all.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Rianne Souza, and I'm the Director of Financial Operations at the district. To assist with addressing me, my pronouns are she and her. I'm here today to present on the 2024 Statement of Financial Information, also known as the SOFI report. The goal of the presentation today is to review the SOFI report for Council approval. For Council and the public's background, to comply with the Financial Administration Act, the district must prepare a consolidated statement of financial information by June 30th, which includes employee remuneration above $75,000 and the total amount of expenses paid to or on behalf of employees, a consolidated total of all remuneration paid to all employees, the total amount paid to each supplier of goods and services above $25,000, and a consolidated total of all other payments made to suppliers of goods and services. The consolidated SOFI includes transactions for the district, library, and Squamish Sustainability Corporation. In addition, Section 168 of the Community Charter requires municipalities to report annually council members' remuneration, benefits, expenses, and any contracts the municipality has with them. To note, the district's consolidated financial statements that were included in the SOFI report are the financial statements that were reviewed in detail at the May 6th council meeting. The staff recommendation is that council approve the 2024 Statement of Financial Information as presented on June 17th, 2025. This concludes the presentation. I'll now turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for our staff at this time? Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Hurford. Curious about the Public Art Committee line item within the SOFI report. I think I asked about this last year, and I think the reply I got back was that that particular line item maybe would more appropriately have a different name other than Public Art Committee. That committee doesn't exist anymore and hasn't been around for a few years. And we're talking about a balance at the beginning of the year of just under $700,000 and an expenditure somewhere along the line of almost $4,000. So wondering if I could get some clarification on what's happening with that particular line item that seems to be out of date.
Through the chair, that is a provision in the financial statements, and it was established per the public art policy. We will be updating the provision named public art, so taking off the committee for the next year's financial statements.
Perfect. That's all I had, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? We also have we do have the matter of the two motions to attend to as well, if that's where we are. I think we should do them separately for clarity. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson. Yep.
Thank you. I must confess, in perusing the report, I wasn't looking for this item, but the question occurs to me now. There is under scheduled payments to suppliers of goods and services, a line item for Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. The amount is over $5 million. My question is whether that the programs and agreements that are involved in that payment from the District of Squamish are described in the report and under what section. I do apologize. I should have been looking for it as I was perusing the report. But for the purpose of the interest of the public, are these transactions described in the report? What they are for? What facilities may be involved? Thank you.
Through the chair, the amount that you're referencing in the SOFI report is the debt servicing payments that we need to make to the SLRD. So it's both the principal and interest payments. We also have a agreement with the SLRD that, and the agreement wouldn't be reflected. Sorry, it's money we received. So yes, it's only the debt servicing payments that you're seeing.
That then is that $5 million line item.
Yes, you are correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, are you ready to make a motion? So Councillor French, you're moving that council approve the 2024 Statement of Financial Information as presented. Yep. Second by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Hurford. This document represents a significant amount of staff time and work. And as always, I found it to be comprehensive and well put together. And in putting this forward for council approval, I want to share that I just feel that this is the usual high bar that our staff brings to us.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Yes, I also wish to compliment the presentation of in the annual report publication. It's not only, I would expect, of interest to the public, but also for us. We haven't visited some of these facilities. So some of the graphics and the illustrations of some of our accomplishments over the last year are very welcome and educational also for councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner. And I think I see your hand, Councillor Pettingill, if that's...
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll speak to both, even though we're doing the motions separately. Appreciate the work that's gone into both these documents. The SOFI report is an important one from a transparency and accountability perspective, and it marks, I think, the end of our annual fiscal as we start to already internally talk about budget for the coming year. But this is a really important landmark for the community to see the final statements of financial information as presented, as Councillor French just mentioned, clear, concise, and really helpful for those of us around this table and our community. Similarly, it's really important to take time to recognize how much has gone into the past year, and the annual report does that in spades. It can sometimes be hard to pick out some of the few that we want to highlight. I know that there's a huge amount of depth of work that has happened in addition to those that have been highlighted. But the presentation of the successes over the past year are, again, clear, concise, really helpful document that we can start to point the community to every year, and appreciate the forward-looking component for the next 2 years as well on each of those items, so that community knows what our priorities are going to be as we look to 2025 and 2026. So thanks to everybody for the good work.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill, did you have a comment on this or no?
On the next one, thanks. Just trying to sort out my raise hand ability.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Just speaking to both, I think this is an important time of year where we can really stop and take a stock of what we've achieved so far, and as well as the work ahead of us. And I find this time and budget time to be wonderful opportunities to engage with the community, to be able to present a more fulsome look at what's happening rather than we tend to be sort of project to project, and it's really hard to step back and take a look without the tremendous amount of work that it took from our staff to put this information in front of us and the community. So thank you for that, for all that work, and and for the work ahead that we're going to do together. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then the second motion is that the District of Squamish 2024 annual report be received by council. Councillor Stoner moves that. Councillor Anderson seconds. And I'll go, Councillor Stoner, you spoke to both. You're good. I'll go to Councillor Pettingill to start us off. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And just want to reiterate a point that was made previously. The amount of things that has been accomplished, it's sort of mind-boggling. It's hard to keep track of it. And so I really appreciate this report to sometimes remind me of all the things we've done. The highlight section is interesting because, you know, we just had a public works tour a couple weeks ago and see the incredible amount of work that's happening there. And I guess it's not finished yet, so maybe that's why it didn't make the highlights page. But there's a whole bunch of additional stuff that we have done over the last year and is ongoing. A lot of work still at Brennan Park, and yeah, just so many things. So just if you read this, it's maybe worth even reading a few times because there's a lot of nuggets hidden in there, and maybe a few things, big things that aren't in here because they're not done yet, but we've been working hard on them. So just appreciate seeing this summary though, and reflecting back on everything we're accomplishing. We've got, for the last 2 terms I've been on, we've had ambitious goals and we are making good progress, but there's still so much more to do, and looking forward to the next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Hurford. I wanted to speak specifically to this one in the lens of transparency. This annual report is one of the most important documents that comes out of Municipal Hall from a transparency perspective. When I see online troll comments accusing this body of not being transparent, I think directly to this document. It's a snapshot in time reflecting the work that's being done, how that work was done, and the costs involved. So anybody who has ever suggested we are not transparent, please read this report and you'll get some insight into the good work that's being done here and how it's being done and what it's costing the taxpayers.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So this is a day of annual general meetings. So next we have the Squamish Sustainability Corporation annual general meeting. And do we have sorry, just on this item, do we have a presentation on this item, or is this solely as presented in the motions? Okay. So we have recommendations here, and I'd appreciate council's help getting through these. Do we need to do these independently? Okay, so these are all independent motions. So would you like to get us started, Councillor French?
Yes, I'd like to move that Mayor Hurford be appointed to vote on behalf of the shareholder during the June 17th, 2025 annual general meeting of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation.
Seconded by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. You want to go again?
All right. I would move that Mayor Hurford be directed to appoint Councillor French, Councillor Hamilton, Bill Stoner, Julie Wangi, Kirby Brown, and Torn Savyard to the board of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation.
Seconded by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Am I on a roll?
Keep us going here.
I'll move that Mayor Hurford be directed to accept the financial statements of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation for 2024.
Seconded by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then I'll move that that Council District of Squamish resolve to suspend the special business meeting temporarily in order to sit as the shareholder of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation at the meeting of that corporation that has been scheduled at this time and place. Councillor Stoner seconds. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. So, so now I meet with myself, and that is means exactly what it sounds like it means. So I have a script to help me with that. Voting on behalf of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation, I resolve that the financial statements of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation for 2024 be accepted by the shareholder, and that Councillor French, Councillor Hamilton, Julie Vangie, Bill Stoner, Kirby Brown, and Torrance Saviord be appointed to the board of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation. Those are so resolved. The Squamish Sustainability Annual General Meeting will now terminate. We will now resume the special business meeting. Okay. When we find ourselves in a disorienting place where we're half an hour ahead of schedule. Given that our next item is as an external, and then we go to a motion to close, let's take a quick recess while we debate and I'll consult with staff and see if that's a 30-minute recess or if we can find a piece to move in this 30 minutes. So recess for 5 and we'll come back. Hello, everybody. Initially at 12 o'clock, I called a 5-minute recess, but we'll actually be in recess till 12:30. So we'll recess the meeting until 12:30. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We've got, so next order of business is a visit from our member of the Legislative Assembly, Jeremy Valeriote. Jeremy, welcome. Thank you for coming to see us, and I understand you have a presentation to run us through. So
Thank
the
you.
floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Mayor Hurford. I've saved the best for last. I've met with every other local government council, I guess, except the SLRD and Squamish Nation. But in the previous ones, it's been sort of during session. So I've monologued for half an hour at all the other councils. And this time, I think one of the staff suggested slides. So we threw together a few slides to keep me on track. And so I'm not, and this is your meeting. I don't want to dictate the discussion, but these are some ideas that we were asked what I might like to talk about. And so there's a few things here, and then we can go on to, I'd like to mostly really hear from you. So, but I can give an update on what I've been up to in the 8 months since, roughly 8 months since election day. And so maybe I'll start in, and I think, I'm happy to take comments, answer any questions as we go. This isn't meant to be a presentation, just a vehicle for discussion. So first thing, I just wanted to acknowledge all of your work on the Dryden Creek wildfire that I'm sure has consumed a lot of time and energy and goodwill. But I'm really happy to see, it seems it's on the right, at least on the right trajectory. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge all council and staff's hard work and everything that goes into a wildfire that close to town. And I'm sure the EOC has been running full tilt since that. So moving, I don't want to linger on that, but happy to listen. It's from what I've heard, the response was exemplary, and maybe there are some gaps that I can relay to the province, but it sounds like it has been a good outcome and a good response. It made me think of the wildfire protection DPAs that you brought forward, guessing in the last couple of years, and would be interested to hear any comment on that and how it relates to this and what you've learned from that. We can save that till, let me just figure out how to advance. We could save that for later, or I can carry on. But does it? I mean, one of the things about representing West Van Sea to Sky is can bring good ideas from the rest of the province here, but often we're exporting good ideas and good approaches. So if there are elements of that you think would be, and you'll have these discussions at UBCM and elsewhere, but if there are elements of that you see would be good to highlight and to lift up provincially, I'm happy to do so. Have you seen direct outcomes from that DPA work and
just on the DPA, I think I'm trying to think. I think that the maybe the newest buildings that were ended up on evacuation alert, more on the Garibaldi Springs side, would likely be have participated in that work, where the existing built space that's new but not brand new on Sky Ridge didn't. I think that we're still in mid response in a lot of ways. So I think that I would say that we've had from sort of initial and during the peak of response, we felt that and our teams felt that we had great support from the province and the various agencies, but this conversation is likely best suited for sort of when we can actually find ourselves in a true post-game, post-response state. But it does make me think about those steps ahead for us. And so far, we've been lucky without any structure loss or infrastructure damage. But what recovery looks like for places that don't, I think is interesting, and what that means for our context going forward. Yesterday we did have to order some evacuation orders that weren't necessarily about fire directly, as more indirect as the result of fire, some slope instability. And it just sort of highlights what the complexity of a recovery could look like will need to look like in different areas. I mean, we've got a sort of a worst case scenario case study, I'd say, from Lytton. But what does it mean in these other contexts where it's adjacent to to an urban area, whether it's steep slopes or whatever those things are. So I think that's an area that we need to pay attention to going forward, and broadly looking at responses in Gun Lake and SLRD and Lytton and so on. I feel like that post bit is a part that is not as easily defined nor staffed or resourced like direct wildfire response is. We've got crews on the ground, they know what to do to go fight the fire. But that next phase, so hopefully we get through that well, but that's something that I'll be looking for, and I think we should all have eyes towards as this continues to unfold. Does anyone else want to venture any comments on wildfire with that context? That I don't want to get too much into the nuance of this, too deep into this response as we're still responding, but if you have any comments on this category.
Mayor Hurford, my comments or suggestions might wait till later. I was going to comment on some of the recommendations coming out of community wildfire protection plans relating to the material that we need to dispose of, the biomass, but perhaps that might wait for later.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. If you want to move us along there, Mr.
Yeah, I'll carry on. Then there's lots of room for discussion at the end. So November and half of December were taken up with, as you all know, we ended up in a situation where with the government had a bare majority seats in legislature. It motivated them to seek the third parties, being the Green Party's support from the two MLAs, myself and Rob Bottrell, Saanich Gulf and the Islands. So we took that opportunity to have a pretty good collaborative discussion about shared initiatives and came up with the Cooperation and Responsible Government Accord, draft in December and finalized in March. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just cover the bare bones of it. Essentially an agreement for a year to be renewed throughout the term with some very concrete deliverables in 2025. There's some kind of big buckets there. During that time, of course, the U.S. tariff actions became fairly prominent in the discussion, and so there was an addition of a duty to consult with our caucus on anything that affected the pieces of the agreement. So, just quick update on progress made. There's a primary care assessment underway to figure out how to allocate the 15 million that was committed to community health centers. We're underway on expanding public coverage for psychologists with a $50 million pilot in cooperation with the BC Psychologists Association. On housing, expanded access to rental assistance programs, SAFER and RAP. We really, in our discussions with the government, it was more about non-market housing. So we have commitment to build or maintain 30,000 units over 4 years. Exact terminology I'll get you, because it did go through a number of iterations. Sorry, not important. Essentially 7,500 units this year and 30,000 over 4 years. On homelessness, 30 million from the Heart and Hearth Fund. The model was the village model in Duncan, but I think it bears a lot of similarities to Under One Roof next door here. So fair bit on that. On climate, as you'll know, we weren't able to budge this government on LNG exports and expanding natural gas or fossil gas production. But they did agree to an independent review of the Clean BC Climate Plan, which is currently underway with two very accomplished reviewers, Dan Vinelovich and Maren Smith. And that will be complete by October to be put into the budget cycle. Essentially review everything on the table of all Clean BC programs, targets, etc. $50 million in each of the next 2 years towards accessibility for heat pumps, protection of Fairy Creek, of a full BC forest review, which my colleague Rob Bottrell's, that's his file, but a very important way of looking at our forest sector in the face of tariff threats, and a bit of a placeholder on local watershed governance, which might be of interest as it gets more momentum with the the ministry water, land, and air protection. Sorry, walrus. Water, land, and resource stewardship. Electoral reform, there's a special committee underway. That's also Rob Bottrell touring the province, hearing from people on how to better engage voters, increase participation, and potentially look at other ways to count ballots, and including proportional representation. And then I mentioned the US tariff piece, which is just prior consultation with our caucus on shared initiatives related to these items. The last is probably, the one I'm most happy about and most proud of, but also the one that's going to take a lot of effort to push along and keep moving, which is regional transit. You all know all about it. You've been asking for it for 10 years or more, but the government did commit to implementing it with a focus on the Sea to Sky in 2025. We all know the speed of these things move. To be totally frank, I don't see buses on the road in 2025, but I do see us getting a lot of the way there through the budget, through the Treasury Board, through the budget cycle, and into what I'm optimistic is an implementation, hopefully in 2026, with a lot of variables on ordering buses and that type of thing. But I know in the district's purchase of the land for the maintenance facility, it was a huge help to demonstrating local government's commitment to that. So over the summer, the ministry, particularly the parliamentary secretary, George Anderson, will engage with local governments and First Nations through the transit committee that you've already formed, and have an implementation plan in time to go to Treasury Board and through the budget process. Lots of details to be finalized, but the indications are positive for fuel tax. There's lots to be ironed out, and understanding that fuel tax is a diminishing source that we need to deal with provincially, but that does seem to have the blessing, or at least the initial approval of the government, and then figuring out how the governance pieces should be a minor fix to allow First Nations to sit in on the governance, but that will be resolved, and then operator and service parameters are to come. So there is an ask from the committee of a certain number of hours that will, to be negotiated, and then a lot of costing to do to figure out exactly what that fuel tax will look like. But given the recent reduction of 17 cents a liter in the carbon tax, I've said that I will certainly, and I think most local governments will defend a much smaller amount of fuel tax to fund regional transit. So that's a discussion to come. I'll give you a quick snapshot of a fairly contentious legislative, well, it started out slow, but turned into a pretty rushed and difficult legislative session, really partly tariff response. You may have, I'll run through them. Bill 7 was Tariff Response Act, really focused on interprovincial trade and procurement. The government repealed Part 4 of it, which was kind of the biggest cabinet consolidation of decision making in the cabinet, which was partly due to the Green Caucus and others speaking up. We were able to to have some amendments to that meant that we could be comfortable with Bill 7 in its final form. The amendments were mostly for transparency and legislative oversight, so that closed door cabinet decisions had to be reviewed by the legislature. And so we ended up voting in favor of that. Bill 8 was the carbon tax, the repealing of the carbon tax on a very short, 24-hour timeline because of federal government decisions. Green Caucus voted against that. Unfortunately, the only two who did. And then Bills 14 and 15 were essentially infrastructure streamlining, one focused on renewable energy and the other on what was meant to be schools and hospitals, but turned into essentially any project that the government deemed to be provincially significant, which left a pretty wide open door. And so those 14 and 15 passed with the speaker breaking the tie. The opposition parties voted against. When it comes to schools and hospitals, I think there is some potential benefit there in terms of streamlining the process, allowing some of this public infrastructure to get to the top of the queue when it comes to permitting. So that is a potential benefit and replaces the previous Significant Project Streamlining Act. There are some concerns over process and other pieces, but I won't linger on that. I should actually see if there's any questions before, or we can. Maybe I'll show you what I've got, and then we can go back to any of them that you want. Just constituency office has been up and running, mostly often without any involvement from me. So we've got SOFI Wallace is one of our constituency assistants. Some of you might have met Jatinder Sidhu, who leads the team, and Paige Calvert. They're both back in the office on another meeting. In the Squamish Adventure Center, which has been a great place to take over from Jordan Sturdy, previous MLA. We've got office hours and we've got drop-ins with most of our meetings are by appointment, but there is a drop-in availability there. Some contact info there. And so the team we've been fully staffed, I think, since February and March. And the team has been ably doing casework, handling many inquiries as I've been stuck in the Victoria bubble trying to get my head around that learning curve. But our team of 3 has been able to handle and I'm really impressed at the response we've been able to get from ministries and the ability of the team to solve some issues that come to them. So it's a big part of the work is the individual casework, and so we've got our feet under us for that. Put it that way. We're leaning into that service, that public service component. So just looking forward to September EBCM convention. I know I'm sure you've got, I haven't seen any details. I'm sure you got meeting requests with ministers. Happy to sit in on those as you see fit. I know sometimes I certainly happy to stay quiet where needed, but and I don't want to be counterproductive, but I'm more than happy to sit in. I feel like in the first 8 months, developed some pretty good relationships with ministers. Our agreement with the government certainly helps with that, and so I'm happy to be invited, and we'll show up to any meeting that I'm invited to, and maybe we can discuss what your priorities are either today or before that comes in. Just did want to have a quick focus on housing, and I to be honest, I think you're all much more immersed in this than I am. But just had a quick look
before we launch into that. I saw a hand, and you can go through. Okay, great. I just want to make sure that we don't pile up questions too much, but go ahead, take us through this bit.
Sorry, thank you. I know the district was recently added to the Housing Targets program. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm hoping that's wanting to highlight success rather than the punitive aspect of the initial, what was it called? The list, the naughty list. Thank you. And then just really talk about infrastructure, because I know that Squamish has made some huge strides on this long before Bill 44, but it has infrastructure implications, and that would be maybe my job is to help advocate for for those as you meet the moment when it comes to housing targets, making sure you have that support. You want to get into housing, or should I? I think there's not a lot left in terms
Well,
of.
I'll let you go
slides.
through the rest of the slides.
Okay.
We're on the home stretch, then we'll have a conversation.
Actually, I think that was it. I really I'm here to hear from you on your priority issues. What's on your mind? I know wildfire has been dominant for the last couple of weeks, but initiatives that I can help support and areas of collaboration. So far, finding this job is often about kind of cross-pollination and putting things in the hopper and then trying to make connections. So the more I know from what your efforts are, the more I can help when some of those conversations take place, and also stay out of the way when it's merited, so when it's warranted. So that's it for in terms of just what my thoughts on today's discussion were. But yeah, happy to hear from you.
Thank you for the update. When you had the slide right before the transit one, I was like, where's the transit? Oh, it's important enough. It's its own slide.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And also for using a graphic that was taken right outside Municipal Hall here with our Valley Cliff bus. I think that's important to show that internally. So Council, we have just these discussions sometimes wander into closed territory. So I'll look for our corpus officer if we get there, and we'll create an opportunity to have those addressed if that's where we find ourselves, or if you have something that is of that nature, we'll have that opportunity later. So I'll go to Councillor Stoner to start us, and then Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks so much for being here. It's been exciting to watch you get up to speed in Victoria. I like how you described the start of the spring legislative session as slow, because I think one of the first days you were in there, I happened to be in Victoria, and you folks were all sitting until 1 a.m. in the morning. And it was a very long day for all of you. A few questions, and it's amazing how many pieces you're moving forward, you and your team. To pick up on the transit one, I would love to give us credit for buying the lot, but it's actually BC Transit that bought the lot. Just to clarify, it didn't come from the district. But I am curious, with the kind of a little bit of optimism here, if you can speak a little bit to timing with respect to Treasury and budget cycles, and what we should be considering in the next kind of 6 to 8 months to really help you and the province on this file to get it across the line. If there's anything, I know that like budget is open for public consultation right now, which sometimes feels like a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe not the most useful approach, but is always good to, I guess, get things in all doors possible. But if there's anything or timing wise that we should be considering from our perspective.
Thanks, through the mayor. Thanks, Councillor Stoner. I think continued pressure, both as the biggest municipality in the region, also through the transit committee, is just as important now as it was before this agreement, because there are a lot of fiscal pressures, and this is one project that I think is well on its way, but it's great to have echo that support and that commitment to it, especially when it comes to fuel tax and the resistance to any more pressure on property taxes to fund this, and so I think that we're looking for that outcome. The Treasury Board budget piece is essential. I say by December most of the budget is relatively set, and so that's why we're aiming for September to get this engagement done and get the implementation plan into place. The capital costs of the buses are key for the budget process. If it's going to be funded by a fuel tax, it doesn't actually have a huge budget implication, at least net. So, but that's where I've had to push pretty hard to get that into that process, because otherwise it theoretically is another year. And I think we all know that BC Transit is it probably 18 months to order buses, and I don't know what the flux is in terms of what they could deploy here earlier than that yet. But that's part of this implementation planning. So, and then I guess the other piece where you continue to do advocacy is for local Squamish transit, which will, I know you've been delayed on expansions for that, and it will have a direct relationship with regional transit and how those get configured. So there's that piece too. But I think, yes, the next 6 to 8 months are the key. And what I've, I think, my vision is that there is continued agreement and alignment for all the local governments and First Nations. There's no kind of division or mixed messages being sent, and then a support for the fuel tax, which I think has been pretty clear in the past, but just that continued, that emphasis that it is supported here and it is a service that we need, and we think that's the most suitable way to pay for it, at least in the kind of decade timeframe.
Okay, that's super helpful. There was one other piece that was part of the agreement, and that we were, I think, at least provincially excited to hear, was the addition of $30 million to the Heart and Hearth program, and something that Squamish has definitely looked at really closely. Under One Roof is an amazing model, and we continue to have exacerbating challenges around homelessness and encampments, especially in our downtown core. Do you have any sense of the timing of the delivery of that $30 million, what the process is in terms of, I believe it gets pushed out by BC Housing, but is that expected $30 million in this fiscal, or is that over multiple years?
Thanks for the question. It is, it's actually not an additional 30 million. It's designated earmarked from within that Heart and Hearth fund. It is this fiscal year. But in terms of timing, I will have to get back to you on that. Having a caucus of two, we're having to divide responsibilities, and housing is not my file. So, but that's the intention, was that it deployed this year, and then it will likely be renewed for next year. So I know there have been discussions about how that will be implemented already. Just on the housing piece, the wording I was looking for was protect, purchase, and build 30,000 units of affordable non-market housing over the mandate, which is 4 years, and 7,500 this year. So just protect, purchase, and build is slightly less than brand new, but the idea is that it be have a tangible effect on nonprofit or on non-market housing. I think I answered.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And then just on this slide and some thoughts, I think it helps that we were, I think, in the 4th round of municipalities that were added to the naughty list from the province. Bill 44, I think, to us is, or at least to me, is still challenging in that it measures progress at building permit as opposed to approvals. So there's a huge lag often, and very market dependent on how you actually get from a rezoning or a development permit approval at the council table to then actually seeing the units getting built. And I think that's the biggest risk, is that there's no incentive or support from the province to get developers to actually build housing that's been approved. So we have a long list of projects that have been approved, have allowable zoning. The small scale multi-unit housing is a great example of that, where I think if all lots within the district were to convert to the existing allowable maximum density, we'd hit all of our targets. But we know that not very many people are actually going to take advantage of that updated zoning. So that's the challenge that I think we're going to see, especially looking at the broader market, is that we might be able to enable it through zoning and through permitting, but actually getting it built is really challenging.
And on that point, I think getting it built is the measure of success. However, measuring our performance on the piece that's largely out of our control is a challenging concept. I've got Councillor Greenlaw, and then we'll kind of do a round. And I saw your hand, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. Kind of building on some of what Councillor Stoner was asking, we get a lot of communications about the encampments in town. There's a lot of concern, especially now that we've had our 3rd wildfire of the season, and there's often some people not abiding by our wildfire bylaws in those communities. So I'm just wondering about how emergency housing is going to roll out. And so presumably this $30 million for the Heart and Hearth piece is being rolled out provincially. And I'm wondering if you have any idea of the resources that this riding specifically, or even Squamish specifically, will receive.
Thanks. I don't have details, but that may be something I can take away and bring back. It's, I mean, 30 million spread over provinces is not a lot, as we know, but there may be some. And Squamish is an obvious candidate for some direct assistance given the attention on this. So, but let me take that one away and see if we're into that level of detail yet. I know there's a BC Housing call that's separate from this, but let me see if I can get you a concrete answer.
And I appreciate that the Heart and Hearth program looks to be a more long-term solution for these, like permanent infrastructure, essentially solution for this issue. But does the province have any initiatives that could be just temporary emergency housing for some of these communities, just to get these people living in safe conditions?
I know before this, in the previous term, there was a lot of discussion of quickly deployable modular housing, but that's probably another question I'm not aware of any rapid response type. There's a lot of this seems to be long term, and given the budget constraints, I don't know that there's a lot of that. I mean, there's obviously a lot of discussion of a work camp at Site C that could house hundreds of people, and whether that and other similar ones could be redeployed, but I don't have an answer in terms of what could be done here in the short term.
Yeah, that is something that's been stuck in my mind, is that Site C camp. I think Surrey's actually jumping on some of that. I have no idea how realistic that is to actually redeploy that, but that is something to explore, obviously, in a time of crisis. And then the other piece, we talked a little bit about fuel pricing and with respect to the carbon tax, and we hear a lot about fuel prices in this region, and some are calling it unfairly high in Squamish itself. And I was just wondering if you had any comments about that, or if there's any way that as a provincial representative you are advocating or can advocate on that front.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know the previous MLA spent a lot of time on this and has a lot of information that they've passed on to our office. Anecdotally, I understand it might be less pronounced than it has been in the past, but that's just one. That's not science. That's just some observations. I would like to. I mean, there's a Fuel Price Transparency Act. It has been studied, and then the province has declined to take any further action. Where it really hits the road for me, and not to say that I can't continue to advocate for it in between, but if we do implement a fuel tax here, then that's when it really comes under the spotlight, and proper data is gathered, and there's a case that goes forward under that, either under the federal act, which is escaping my mind right now, or the Fuel Price Transparency Act, the anti-competition piece. So and that might be something we're involved the MP, but it's been on the radar for years now, and so the cumulative overpaying of Sea to Sky residents is vast, and I think it's probably the next spike might be the opportunity to start to invoke some action under the Fuel Price Transparency Act, and at least ensure that we're getting. I mean, and to be totally frank, implementing a fuel tax for transit might be the one way to take a chunk out of those profits that have been leaving the coast or leaving the corridor. So yeah, lingering one that previous MLAs haven't had any success with, and I'd like to figure out if there's another angle. But I'm more than open to that, because I know you probably hear about it as much as I do.
Yeah, to my mind, it would almost be ideal if we could just like sneak in the transit tax to like take away that profit margin because people are already acclimatized to the high price. But anyways, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Finch.
Thank you, Mayor Hurford. Thanks for being here today. And thank you also for getting out of the gate sprinting. I'm really impressed with the pace that you've set. And following your social media, I'm seeing that you're connecting well with our neighbors. And that's what I want to ask about. Regional transit is getting a super enthusiastic response from everybody north of Furry Creek. And I'm a little worried about Lions Bay and West Van. So I'd love to hear from you your impression of their enthusiasm for regional transit. Are they fully on board with the idea? Are they carrying their weight? Or do we need to work on that relationship a bit and get them more enthused with the idea to make it happen?
Thanks. That's a great question. And this is one of the reasons why I was looking forward to this, because that's not something I've heard from Lions Bay or West Van, any kind of hesitation or, but it is worth keeping in mind. I mean, the assumption is that BC Transit will run this regional transit service. There is an outside chance that it's TransLink who's already serving those communities, and so that would probably be more streamlined for them. But the idea would be that Lions Bay, there is a stop in Lions Bay for regional transit and several in West Van, and I know that West Van has some interest in taking the load off the helping to reduce the load on the upper levels. So, but I haven't heard objections from them, and so it's something I would dig into and make sure that they're the last thing we need is somebody throwing up sticking in the spokes of this at the last minute. So thanks for highlighting that, and I think that's certainly, if there's appetite with Squamish to help build that out, or put me in touch with doubters, then I'm more than happy to take it on. I think they need to be consulted, and they're not, strictly speaking, in the regional transit committee. So that's an important piece to make sure they get included.
They really do play an important role, and I haven't heard of any doubters. My concern, though, is if we need to hold their hands to get them excited, then we should do that. I have one more transit-related question, and this might be a bit premature, but if you have any thoughts on it, I'd love to hear. When our regional transit system is created, I would love for it to be cutting-edge technology with batteries and non-fossil fuel dependent. Do you have any thoughts on moving us away from smelly diesel to something a little more advanced when that system's up and running?
Thanks. I don't have specifics, but I know that battery electric buses are, I think they've even BC Transit has taken delivery of some. I don't have the numbers, but and there are more on the way. And from what I understand, this maintenance facility will be definitely prepared for that. So, and I took a picture of one. It turned out to be the Cypress Mountain electric bus. I was hoping it was a Squamish connector, but I mean that's the way this is going, a decarbonized fleet. So in some ways, entering when we do, which is hopefully in the next couple of years, actually might put us to the front of the line in terms of cutting edge. But that's some of the details that we need to be worked out, and bus technology, but also payment systems and that type of thing need to be. I mean, there's no question about the demand here, but to make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, there's some other technological pieces that need to be brought in. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Anderson, then Pingill.
Thank you. Mr. Valeriote, Jeremy, in one of your slides, you highlighted climate and environment, and there was reference to Clean BC and heat pumps. I'd like to suggest that there's another topic here that is underappreciated and that we're not devoting enough attention to locally, regionally, provincially, nationally, and that is one that's highlighted by our Fire Smart program. they cannot keep up or solve the issue of what to do with the material that is being removed from our timber stands, our forest stands, our parks and whatnot around the valley and beyond. What do you do with this material? It's enormously costly. Right now, we're burying it in the ground or just puzzled over what to do with it. It is very costly and it is limiting the treatment areas that are possible. So in our, we have our sustainability coordinator, Ian Pickett, and his conducted a biomass blitz program a couple of years ago with funding support through the Squamish Nation. My point is we need more such funding programs to do innovation in dealing with this biomass. And so we have in our climate action plan, which is now being renewed, we give good attention to this. It's well recognized as a problem, but it's a problem around the province, and it is addressed in every single climate or community wildfire protection program protection plan ever written in BC. Going back to the Philman report from 20 years ago, this is a serious issue that we're not, relative to other jurisdictions, doing anything about. So I'd like to suggest that whenever we have opportunity, we need to give attention to this. It's extremely important, not least for fire smart programs. We need new solutions and innovation for dealing with biomass. It's not only energy, but it is energy and other things. And we're just not giving a coordinated approach to this. The problems are shared, Squamish and beyond. That's one recommendation. Another couple of brief comments. You mentioned Bill 14 and the Renewable Energy Project Streamlining Permitting Act. I'd like to express some caution here. In other jurisdictions, these kinds of pieces of legislation have come into difficulty. An example, in our corridor, we had the Run of the River power project, which was a huge dust up between the Squamish Nation, the district, the regional district, and the province 20 odd years ago. And overseas and around the world, in fact, wind farms are the subject of huge controversy because of their environmental and landscape impacts and First Nations Aboriginal peoples. In the Northern Europe, this is a huge problem with the Sami people and wind farms. So be careful about the implications of that legislation. We may come into real dust-ups about, not least for BC First Nations and their feelings about these projects. Moving quickly to another issue, you've mentioned participation in ministers' meetings. All of us can attest the value of having you present and the value of having Jordan Sturdy present in the past. It's very important. I would suggest also that the estimates debates, not only this year, but next year and the year after, we would like to be able to utilize your presence there. It's a great opportunity for us, and we don't utilize it enough. So if you could, Jeremy, you might give us a prompt. Hey, this is coming up. What can I do for you? Because we're so busy in our own files, we don't keep attention to what's going on with the legislative schedules. If you could give us a prompt, I'm sure that we would jump at the opportunity to offer some questions or points for you to deliver in spending's estimate. Finally, you've mentioned the forest sector review. A number of organizations are commenting that there's a lack of representation of practical business, boots in the ground people on that review committee, and it's absolutely true. There's nobody that we could say represents this corridor or this region. Gary Merkel, who I've known for a very long time, is an office guy. People have told, well, yeah, but there's Harry Nelson, Professor at UBC. Yes, Harry's a great guy. He's very familiar with the boots in the ground people, but he's the UBC guy. And so we don't have contractors, workers, people, First Nations businesses represented on that review committee. And it's the same mistake that was made with the old growth review. We need, and as much as you and your party can advise, some kind of practical business, economic, forestry people on that review committee, instead of people that sit in their offices all their careers. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Councillor Pettingill. I just acknowledge that we're sort of at the time that we've allotted for this, not to quash the conversations around Councillor Pettingill's points, but just to signal that we need to move towards a conclusion of this portion of the conversation. So sorry to start your comments with that statement, Councillor Pettingill, but over to you.
Yeah, I think the first one anyways is fairly brief. And thank you for coming to speak to us today, MLA Valeriote, and sorry I couldn't be there in person. I appreciate the work you've been doing. based on my previous involvement, I understand how much work it is when you're one of two people in a Green Party representing the whole province, not just your riding. So it's an enormous amount of work, and thank you. You spoke to the NDP's, I guess, unwillingness or lack of understanding, maybe, to move away from its looking at fossil fuel development, gas exports, and so on. But in the Clean BC review, will that be part of the review, sort of understanding of the impacts of our continued pursuit and involvement in fossil fuel development, or is that being segregated out from the Clean BC review?
That will absolutely be part of the review. There's nothing is off the table here. The acronym LNG is not in the terms of reference, but that's not because it won't be looked at. So targets and everything are part of this, and we're expecting these reviewers to bring a path forward that shows us the way based on current conditions and where we need to get to.
Okay, thanks. That's actually quite good to hear. It feels often like the rest of us are having to make a lot of change and sacrifice for the sake of this industry, which doesn't feel very fair. But leave my editorial aside. Back to the housing piece. I hear rumblings or discussion sometimes about wanting municipalities to lower developer charges, DCC charges, and so on. Our community always asks us to make development pay for growth. And sort of my fear is if we start reducing these fees, which might incentivize growth, it just helps inflate land values further, puts more money in the hands of banks and so on, and takes money out of the community and makes existing ratepayers pay for that growth. Do you have a sense of where the province is on this sort of issue? Like, do you have an understanding that they are supportive of us charging appropriate fees to cover the cost of growth, or is your sense that they're really looking for us to subsidize development effectively, is how I see it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that discussion has been that direct in terms of Bill 44 and the building permits versus approvals discussion. And my job is, as you know, we have an agreement with the government to support them on confidence issues, but we also act as an opposition party, and the role is to bring forward some of these unintended consequences that we all knew would come from Bills 44 through 47. So I think, and I know that the DCC CAC piece was prominent, but I haven't seen regulation on that. So I think it would be helpful to advocate alongside the district on seeing that isn't developed any further, because I know, especially in a rapidly growing community like this, you need that, and so to have that negotiating power removed is really challenging for a municipality. But in terms of where they want to move, I don't know, but that's a question for the minister and where they want to go with this, and shortcomings and unintended consequences keep getting brought up, and some of them we agree with, some of them we don't. But I'm happy that's a good piece of advocacy. Maybe, I don't know if you've got it in the hopper for UBCM, but if not, I can sit down with the minister on that and find out where they're going with Squamish as a case study.
I've got Councillor Stoner's hand on this point, Councillor.
Yeah, just bridging to that UBCM advocacy piece. Timely, this evening's meeting, we have we'll be considering the minister meeting request that we'll be putting forward. And so we're just in the early stages of identifying what our advocacy priorities are going to be for UBCM. But as you mentioned, we are typically very grateful to have our MLA in those conversations. And so that'll be part of our discussion this evening, is which ones it'll be most beneficial to have you there, recognizing that your schedule is also very busy during that week.
So Council, I'm actually going to move receipt of the report. I just have and then I'll comment on that. I don't have questions at this point. So Councillor Stoner seconds. First of all, thank you coming to give us the opportunity to hear about what's happening in Victoria, and I think your perspective as sort of our eyes and ears there, but also in the unique position that you find that the Green Party has put themselves with your agreement with the government, I think is a really interesting piece. And I know that I can see in that agreement Squamish being at the forefront of those asks. So thank you for that, and also the offer to attend the minister meetings going forward at UBCM, and actually the generosity of acknowledging that that may not be the move. So we'll have that discussion going forward. But thank you for recognizing both of those pieces and spending some time here with us. We'll have some more. If there's no other comments on the motion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. And now we'd be looking for a motion to close the meeting. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor Anderson. Thank you. All in favor? Motion carries. So we'll recess and we'll reconvene in the closed. When we're ready to do so. Usually takes about 15 minutes. Thank you.
So, Mayor Hurford, I have 1:45 in my agenda. Is that what I should plan on, or should I just be watching?
You can go ahead to the close link and we'll find you there.